From company-wide mistakes that costed LEGO millions of dollars to rejecting ideas that could have easily made that money back. These are the biggest mistakes LEGO's ever made. Picture this, you're LEGO, one of the biggest toy companies in the world, and you think you've got everything under control. But then, boom. One tiny human error sets you back $1.6 million. Yeah, you heard that right. In 2015, someone at LEGO's Billund factory mislabeled a color tube. Instead of the sleek dark gray pieces, light gray pieces were packed in its place. What followed was a literal nightmare. LEGO had to recall a total of 129,000 sets before they even hit the shelves. And get this, they had to bring in employees from the Czech Republic and Hungary who were literally on vacation just to fix the mess. Talk about ruining someone's holiday. In the end, LEGO spent $1.6 million cleaning up this mess. They even invested in better factory lighting and pre-printed labels so this never happens again. Luckily for them, the company pulled in a whopping $3.5 billion in revenue that year. So $1 million hiccup? Barely a scratch. After this, I guess the employee who made the mistake ended up in the safe zone. This mistake was pretty bad, but what happens when something like this happens with a Technic set instead of a piece? Well, if there's one thing you expect from LEGO Technic, it's mind-blowing engineering. However, even LEGO can mess up the mechanics from time to time. Case in point, the Porsche 911 GT3 RS set. This beauty was supposed to showcase LEGO Technic's ability to replicate real-life engineering in LEGO form. But there was just one problem. They totally messed up the gearbox. When people got their hands on this set, they quickly noticed that the gear sequence was, let's say, less than accurate. Instead of the smooth transition you'd expect from a high-performance car, the gearbox was out of order, causing a complete misfire in how the gears shifted. Imagine buying a $300 LEGO set and spending hours building it, only to realize the gears don't even work like a real Porsche. Yikes. LEGO eventually acknowledged the mistake, but didn't offer official fixes. Regardless, the set is still super popular, even with this massive design flaw. But this next mistake is one that couldn't be ignored. By the way, if you guys are enjoying this video, be sure to subscribe. I post LEGO videos just like this one every week. When you think about LEGO, fire hazard probably isn't the first thing that comes to mind. But that's exactly what happened with the LEGO Power Functions IR Speed Remote Control. This little gadget was designed to give builders full control over their LEGO Technic sets, letting you ramp up the speed and feel like a true LEGO mechanic. Unfortunately, things got a little too heated. Literally. Shortly after its release, reports started coming in that the remote was overheating. Like, seriously overheating. Users were experiencing everything, from melting plastic to the whole thing getting so hot that you couldn't even hold it. It was a nightmare, so LEGO had no choice but to recall the product. What was meant to be a fun addition to the Power Functions line quickly became a safety concern, and LEGO had to act very fast. The company pulled the remotes from the shelves, reimbursed customers, and went back to the drawing board to avoid any future barbecues. But this wasn't the only time LEGO had to pull a product from the shelves, and this next one was actually a LEGO truck. You'd think a truck is only as good as its wheels, right? Well, not if you're talking about the LEGO Explorer Super Truck, which had a major problem with its wheels. Like, they just kept falling off. Imagine giving a kid this awesome looking truck only to have the wheels separate from the axles and roll away on their own. Not exactly the kind of playtime experience LEGO was going for. The issue was so bad that LEGO issued a full recall on the Super Truck set in 2002 and 2003. The problem? Those detached wheels posed a choking hazard for small kids, and the axles that the wheels sat on were super pointy when the wheels weren't covering them. So not only could kids choke on the wheels, but they could even accidentally stab themselves with the axles. This recall, though, was absolutely massive. The set was sold all over North America through big-name retailers like Toys R Us and Walmart. LEGO quickly pulled the product from the shelves and issued refunds to anyone affected. Safety is obviously a big deal for LEGO, but this was a pretty embarrassing bump in the road for the Explorer line. On a happier note, though, let's talk about one of LEGO's more common but super annoying mistakes. A certain type of misprint called a shift print. You've probably seen one of these before, where the print on a minifigure isn't exactly where it's supposed to be, leaving you with a pretty wonky looking minifig. The most infamous examples? Minifigure heads where the eyes, mouth, or helmet details are totally out of place. It's like LEGO's printers decided to take the day off. This usually happens during the manufacturing process, when the minifigure's head isn't perfectly aligned on the torso when it's time to print. What should be a flawless face or helmet design ends up looking like something out of a LEGO horror movie. Like, look at this Clone Trooper minifig. The blue helmet is way off to the right, but then look at this TIE Fighter pilot. The print for this guy isn't even remotely close. Now, if you ever opened up a LEGO set and got something like this, I bet you'd be a little mad at first, but let me tell you why you shouldn't be. These misprints have actually turned into collector's items. One of these botched Clone Troopers sold for around $125. and 2 different Imperial TIE Fighter pilots went for a jaw-dropping $220 and $250. So while these errors might seem like a stroke of bad luck, you might actually be able to make some good money off of it, but that definitely isn't the case for this next mistake. When LEGO fans heard about the upcoming WALL-E set from LEGO Ideas, they went crazy. Who wouldn't want to build their very own adorable trash compacting robot? But there was one small problem that nearly derailed the entire release. WALL-E's head just wouldn't stop wobbling. Right before the set hit the shelves, LEGO had to slam the brakes because of a design flaw in WALL-E's neck. Instead of sitting firmly in place, his head bobbled around like he was dancing to some imaginary music. For a set designed as a display piece, that wasn't going to work. LEGO's designers were forced to go back to the drawing board and fix the wobbly head issue, delaying the release for a few crucial weeks. Fans were left waiting, and the anticipation only grew stronger. To LEGO's credit, they didn't rush the fix. When WALL-E finally hit the market, his head was nice and secure, and fans were able to enjoy the build without worrying about their little robot having a mind of his own. While the delay wasn't catastrophic, it certainly put a damper on the initial excitement. But just when you thought you were done hearing about wobbly LEGO sets, here's another one. But this time is a superhero. When LEGO dropped the Ant-Man Final Battle set in 2015, fans were eager to build their own showdown with Scott Lang and a giant ant. But there was a pretty big problem. The giant ant wasn't exactly battle ready. The set came with major stability and mobility issues, with the ant barely being able to stand up without tipping over. And since the set was fully designed around this ant, it was definitely a big problem. In the UK, the set's release was delayed for about 2 weeks because of this production issue. The ant's legs were so loose that even the slightest amount of pressure would squash the poor thing. LEGO had to scramble to fix this disaster, so they added a couple of new pieces. A Technic axle with 2 grooves and a 1x1 nose cone. These were added to each leg for extra stability. And guess what? The fix worked. The updated sets could finally stand tall without collapsing. But here's the kicker. LEGO didn't change the box or make it known that the set had been modified at all. The only way you could tell was by the updated instructions tucked inside. Talk about low-key damage control. Meanwhile, over in the US, fans had already been building their squishy ants since the set launched on June 1st, with no idea that this fix was on the way. I have to say, LEGO, if you're gonna fix mistakes, you should at least let the people know. Now, let's talk about one of the weirdest and most extreme LEGO misprints you can come across. The 180-degree print. This is when LEGO decides to flip the script, like literally, and print on the wrong side of a minifigure. An example we have here is this Chewbacca minifigure from the Yavin 4 Rebel base set, where instead of his face being printed on the front, it's on his back. This little mishap turns one of the galaxy's most iconic characters into something straight out of a LEGO fever dream. And collectors, well, they're absolutely eating it up. One of these misprinted Chewies sold for around $200, proving that even the weirdest LEGO errors can turn into gold. But it doesn't stop there. An AT-AT Driver minifigure also had its print reversed and sold for around $150. While these reverse print misfits are technically mistakes, they've become rare, sought-after collectibles that bring in some serious cash. This is one of the only LEGO mistakes that can lead to something good though, so let's get back to the mistakes that just can't be overlooked. This is the LEGO White House set, a building with a high reputation. But turns out, even LEGO's most refined builds aren't immune to major mistakes. In this case, it wasn't the bricks that caused problems, but it was the instruction manual itself. Yup, LEGO's own manual had a pretty significant error, confusing builders mid-build and forcing them to improvise. The mistake completely threw off the building process, which obviously frustrated a lot of people who just wanted to build the set. The instructions were so messed up that it even told people to endlessly stack 1x1 plates. Like, how does something like this even happen? LEGO eventually corrected the instructions, but not before a lot of builders had to fend for themselves and get creative to finish building the set. It's not exactly what you would expect from a premium LEGO product, and for a set centered around the White House, you'd hope for more careful planning. In the end, LEGO did manage to fix the instructions and send out corrections, but the damage was done. If you were one of the early buyers, you had to navigate this architectural masterpiece with a serious design flaw in its blueprint. And I hate to say it, but this isn't the only icon LEGO messed up. When LEGO released the Steamboat Willie set, fans were hyped to get their hands on a tribute to one of the most iconic Disney characters of all time. But in their rush to launch the set, LEGO made a pretty glaring mistake, one that fans immediately noticed. The side of the boat, which was meant to show the set's sequential number as number 25, was instead printed as number 24. It may seem like a minor typo, but for the collectors, this kind of thing is a really big deal. The packaging error the set's intended numbering, which caused some confusion and left fans scratching their heads. LEGO acknowledged the issue and promised to correct it in future versions of the set, but the set was already in stores. Early buyers were left with this glaring reminder that sometimes even LEGO gets a little too excited and skips a few crucial steps. Though the printing error didn't affect the actual build, it became a talking point among fans. And let's be real, if you're shelling out money for collector's items, you'd expect the packaging to be just as flawless much as the build itself. LEGO fixed the mistake eventually, and maybe also fired the guy who did that, but the early copies with number 24 are still out there somewhere. When it comes to misprints though, nothing stands out quite like the combined prints on minifigures. These are way cooler than just regular misprints. In fact, it's kind of a blessing in disguise. It started when an employee somehow messed up and made the first combined print. However, some collectors out there thought, this is cool. It would sell for a lot of money. And just like that, combined prints became one of the most expensive misprints in LEGO history. This LEGO Clone Arc Trooper is an example of just how bizarre this combination can get. This trooper ended up getting the black printing of a dress meant for a female LEGO City minifigure. Instead of a sleek soldier in armor, you've got a clone trooper who looks like he's ready for a night out on the town. What makes these combined prints so fascinating and expensive is their sheer rarity. Collectors flock to these misprints, eager to snag something so uncommon and cool looking. So if you ever find a minifigure with one of these combined prints, odds are you can throw it up on eBay and make a couple $100. But when it comes to minifigures, there is one more mistake that's even less common than combined prints. LEGO Star Wars sets are home to some of the most sought after minifigures in the galaxy, and one of the rarest is a unique misprint of Princess Leia that came with the 2010 Tantive IV set. In its first production run, something bizarre happened. Leia's hair mold came out completely smooth. That's right, no ripples or detailing in her hair, just a perfectly smooth, sleek style that was never intended for the final product. Now again, this was a mistake and it was not supposed to come out that way, but LEGO fans love something out of the ordinary. This smooth-haired Leia became an instant hit among collectors. While most fans were scrambling to build their Tantive IV set, a select few unknowingly acquired one of the rarest misprints in LEGO Star Wars history, and the appeal only grew over time, with collectors hunting down these copies of Leia, turning her into a prized piece of LEGO memorabilia. Interestingly, this mistake wasn't exclusive to the Tantive IV set. It's popped up in a few other Leia minifigures as well. However, it's the first production run on the Tantive IV set that remains the most well-known and sought after. Today, if you're lucky enough to own a smooth-haired Leia, you're holding onto a minifigure that's as rare as they come in the Star Wars LEGO universe. This is the LEGO Football Coca-Cola signboard from 2012. And I mean, just look at it. How in the world is this a real LEGO set? It literally only has 4 pieces, and it doesn't even come in a box, just some tiny little poly bag. This LEGO set, if you can even really call it that, is one of the biggest memes in the LEGO community, and it's definitely not for good reason. But some of the other items in this video will have your jaw on the floor, so make sure you watch all the way until the end of the video. Up next is one of the worst minifigure adaptations in all of LEGO, and funnily enough, it's actually in the Incredibles 2 theme. If I'm being honest, I've only seen the first Incredibles movie, but in the second one, they introduced this character called Brick. Because of how she's built, a big figure might not have been a bad idea, like what LEGO did for Hulk. But no, instead, this is what they made for her minifigure. I mean, like, come on, just look at this. Obviously, the proportions are way off, but even the colors are completely wrong. Brick made her debut in the Great Home Escape set, and that's the only set she's ever been in, for obvious reasons. When it comes to hated minifigures, this one is pretty high up, but there are some that are way worse than this, like LEGO Galador. This theme came out all the way back in 2002 and was based on a show called Galador that was on TV at the time. If you've never heard of this theme for some reason, allow me to present to you why it got, and still gets, so much hate. This is one of the sets in the theme. I promise I'm not trolling at all. I know what you're thinking. There's literally no way LEGO made this. It looks nothing like a LEGO set. And that, my friend, is exactly why it gets as much hate as it does. The sets in this theme are just ugly and look nothing like LEGO. The only thing that gets more hate than Galador is you if you don't subscribe to my channel in the next 3 seconds. Trust me, you don't even want to know what happened to the last person that didn't subscribe. The funny thing about LEGO Galador, though, is that for some reason, LEGO had another theme around the same time that had the exact same problem. That theme is Jack Stone, and just look at this dude. Let's just say hypothetically that this theme dropped today instead of in 2001. If I walked into a store and saw this guy in a box with a LEGO logo on it, I'd literally think it was fake and ask an employee if someone put him there as a prank. The craziest part about both Jack Stone and Galador, though, isn't just the fact that they exist. It's that they both had way more sets than they should have. Galador had 19 and Jack Stone had 25. I really don't know who was funding these sets back in the day, because seeing how much hate they get now would have made me think they had 5 sets between the two of them. Now, I just said that these themes have a lot of sets, but nothing gets hated on more than Lego Star Wars. I have to say though, sometimes it's justified. There's a character in Star Wars named Aldar Beto, and we saw him for the first and only time in The Phantom Menace. Obviously, this guy is the furthest thing from human, but when Lego made a set of the pod racers from that movie, you won't believe how they made him in Lego form. According to Lego, this is the Aldar Beto minifigure. And again, I'm not trolling. This is by far the most insane thing I've ever seen Lego do. Whatever this thing is, looks absolutely nothing like Aldar Beto. As much as I'd like to say it ends there, it unfortunately doesn't. A year before that Beto minifigure came out, Lego released the Mos Espa Pod Race set, and it was very apparent that what they did for Beto wasn't out of the ordinary. This character's name is Gasgano, and he was also racing at the pod race. Did you get a good look at him? Well, this is what Lego made him as in this set. I mean, all I can really do is sigh and shake my head. I'm gonna play devil's advocate here though, and go out on a limb and say that Lego was cutting corners like this because business was going really badly for them at that time. Bionicle saved them in 2001, and these minifigures were from the years 1999 and 2000. So I guess they really didn't want to waste the money on new molds, even though they did for the Sebulba minifigure. That's also in the Mos Espa Pod Race set. But whatever, let's just move on to the next item. Up next is a singular piece that was so poorly designed that it literally broke minifigure's legs. The piece I'm talking about is this utensil stand, and to be honest, I have no idea how such a small piece was able to do so much damage. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not like every single minifigure explodes as soon as you put it on this piece, but a fair amount of people online have talked about how over time, this piece will genuinely just crack and break the legs on your minifigures. It's pretty obvious why this thing is so hated, so let me show you a piece that would only be hated by some very unlucky people. Lego just recently released a Mario Kart set, and as cool as it is, there's an evil little piece in this set lurking in the shadows. One of the biggest parts of Mario Kart are the items you get from the item boxes. So for the set, Lego decided to include a red shell, a green shell, and a banana. Just like always, that banana piece is both sneaky and deadly. If for some reason you were to lose this piece and find it by, I don't know, accidentally stepping on it, it would probably be the most painful thing in the world. One Reddit user was unlucky enough to experience this, and made a post saying how it was quite literally the worst Lego piece they've ever stepped on. Other users compared it to a caltrop, saying that there's no safe way for this piece to land, which is definitely true. So if you ever end up owning this piece, make sure you know where it is at all times. If not, you might just end up setting the perfect trap for yourself. Getting back to items that aren't based on luck or bad luck, I want to talk about the Lego Harry Potter Gringotts Bank set. This set is pretty new to the Harry Potter theme, and it's one that fans had been waiting on for a super long time. Overall, it's a great set. I mean, there's literally nothing wrong with it. That is, until you look above the front door to the bank. To make the sign that sits up there, you had to use stickers, which is super annoying, but nonetheless still possible. The only problem is that these stickers are super ugly. They're separated into two different ones, and Lego even split up the word Gringotts. I mean, seriously, Lego, TS really PMO, bro. This is such a widely known problem with this set that you can find customs online that sell the two stickers combined into one. This is definitely one of the uglier sticker jobs in a Lego set, but there's another side to stickers that makes this look like nothing. I mentioned it before, but stickers are probably the most annoying part about Lego sets. A theme that's infamously known for having way too many stickers in their sets is the Speed Champions theme. But there's a set in here that has stickers that are the worst. I mean, the worst to put on in the history of Lego. That set is the Lamborghini V12, and take a look at what they're telling you to do on page 55 of the instructions. Apparently, you're supposed to take this teeny tiny piece and put an even teenier and tinier sticker onto it. Twice. There's literally no way anybody is putting that sticker on straight, especially if they're an adult. I mean, if you have big hands, you probably won't even be able to peel the sticker off in the first place. As bad as these stickers are, nothing's worse than when Lego makes something look worse just to save money. This is the first ever Sam Wilson Captain America minifigure, and it came in the Marvel Studios random bag. This is a super sick minifigure for a lot of reasons, but the most obvious one are his wings. Like, look at how cool those are. This minifig came out back in 2021, and since then, Lego's made a new version for a different set. As much as I wish I could say it was new and improved, it absolutely was not. LEGO literally took the best part about this minifigure and made it so much worse. If we're being honest, this was all probably somehow related to money, which is one thing we just can't seem to escape with LEGO, especially when it comes to the price of certain sets. This is the Desert Skiff and Sarlacc Pit set from LEGO Star Wars, and with just 250 pieces, you'd think this set would be super cheap. It's got a low piece count, and if we're being honest, it really isn't all that cool. For some reason though, LEGO put a price tag of $80 on this set. Fans immediately took to the internet, talking about how crazy this price is. None of it seemed to make any sense, until someone realized that this set actually completes a scene from Star Wars with a different set that costs $500. In Episode 6, The Return of the Jedi, Luke ends up getting escorted to the Sarlacc Pit on Jabba's sail barge. This ship is the $500 set that I mentioned before, but the one thing nobody ever had was a Sarlacc Pit to complete the scene. Well, people put 2 and 2 together here, and realized that LEGO was charging this much because they knew how much everyone wanted a Sarlacc Pit in general, let alone to complete the scene. This obviously isn't confirmed or anything, but the set still gets a ton of hate nonetheless. Instead of talking about something so scummy, let's switch gears and talk about something that's out of LEGO's control, I think. Look at this picture someone posted on Reddit of their LEGO set. Notice anything wrong with it? Well, at first I didn't, but then I noticed that there are weird marks on every ingot and even on the stud too. So I did some digging and figured out that these marks are actually called mold marks, and every so often you'll find them on different LEGO pieces. They're basically a birthmark for a LEGO piece, but people really don't like seeing them. There are loads of posts online about how much people hate seeing mold marks and how they wish LEGO could just figure something out so they never have to see them again. This is something that never truly bothered me very much, but a lot of people think LEGO's just being lazy. I personally don't think that's true in this case. However, when it comes to the Loader Sword from the Lord of the Rings, I have a completely different opinion. This is by far the laziest way to make a LEGO sword I think I've ever seen. The only saving grace of this set is that it was an in-store exclusive in the US back in 2012. But even then, you can't deny the truth. This is just downright lazy. Loads of people online have joked about how insane it is that LEGO made a sword using these pieces, and this time I have to agree with them. There's one set in LEGO Star Wars though that just gets way too much hate, and it doesn't even make any sense. This is the First Order AT-ST set, and I know all the Star Wars fans are looking at this set in horror, but just give me a minute to explain. This set was released with the final movie of the Star Wars series, and there's a scene in this movie where the little orange droid, BB-8, pilots an AT-ST. He gets in a shootout with some stormtroopers, and the vehicle gets hit so badly that the top just falls right off. Looking back at the LEGO set, I think it's obvious enough that it's based on this scene, but people just were not having it. To this day, this is regarded as one of the worst sets in LEGO Star Wars, and I really just don't get it. I understand that an AT-ST with a head looks a lot cooler, but come on, this set is genuinely hilarious. Maybe I just have a bad character flaw, because I also think this bottle set is one of the funniest things I've seen in LEGO. It's got 8 pieces to its name, so it isn't as bad as the Coca-Cola signboard, but I think this bottle set is actually smaller. It's from the LEGO Studios theme, which hasn't seen the light of day in a really long time, so it's not like you'll ever see it on the shelves. But still, super tiny sets like this are hilarious to me. Like, why even make it at that point? Anyways, the last hated item I want to show you is actually a minifigure from the LEGO Harry Potter theme. As we've seen throughout this video, it's pretty obvious that the early 2000s were a rough time for LEGO. And while this Harry Potter minifig isn't anywhere as bad as Al Darbido, it's still pretty weird. The one I'm talking about is this Ron Weasley minifig from 2004, and I think we can all agree that his faceplate is just unsettling. It's like he wants to smile, but also wants to be angry, and kind of just ended up somewhere in the middle. A lot of people really don't like this guy because of that, and it makes a lot of sense. I mean, who would want to see this faceplate in their collection? Overview of every color LEGO's ever used made into a set. The set was created by Doc Brick on LEGO Ideas, and the only reason they even did this was because LEGO merged with Bricklink back in 2022. Bricklink is the easiest way to find and purchase anything LEGO's ever made. Whether it's a set, a rare minifigure, or a random piece from a set you built 10 years ago, I guarantee you Bricklink has it. You might be wondering why someone would even bother making a set like this though. Well, it's because LEGO actually uses very specific names for their colors, but most times they'll use something more simple just to make it easier for the public. It's kind of like an encyclopedia, except way shorter and of course way cooler since it's about LEGO. This is one that LEGO should have made for sure, but you won't believe some of the other rejections in this video, so make sure you watch all the way until the end. Up next is probably one of the funniest Lego jokes I've ever seen made into a set. We're all familiar with the brick separator, right? You know, that weird orange thing that you only use if you really have to. Well, someone took that concept and made this, the Lego emergency box set. Let's be honest, we're really only whipping this bad boy out if there's a dire emergency. So this set is spot on to real life. Maybe Lego thought it was a waste of money or something, but in my opinion, fans would have eaten this set up. I mean, how often do you see Lego making a joke set about themselves? If anything's a joke though, it's the amount of times Lego rejected a Taylor Swift Lover House set. Now, I'm not a Swiftie, so I don't really know what the hype is around this house. From what I can tell, she had been quote-unquote building rooms with different albums over the years, and an album she dropped in 2022 completed the house. And this sparked an entire movement in the Lego community. 4 different Lover House sets were submitted to Lego Ideas in November of that year, and it only took 4 days. 2 of them were even submitted on the exact same day, but unfortunately, it didn't matter to Lego how many people wanted it. They still rejected all of them anyway. This next rejection is actually more of a Lego secret. I heard that if you aren't subscribed to my channel, Lego won't let you buy anything from them, even if it's online, so make sure you subscribe. Anyways, this wouldn't be a video about rejected Lego ideas if I didn't talk about a classic movie not getting a spot on the shelves. And this time around, it's Shrek. Lego's rejected so many different sets based on popular TV shows and movies. So many, in fact, that I could probably make an entire video about it. So if you want me to make one, let me know down in the comments. About Shrek though, this one is actually just as embarrassing as the Lover House rejections. Since 2022, 3 different Shrek Swamp sets have reached 10,000 supporters on Lego Ideas, and one of them even got it twice in 1 year. But knowing Lego, no matter how many times a set gets enough supporters, if they won't budge, they won't budge. There might be some hope for us yet though. With Shrek 5 coming out later this year, there's a chance Lego finally collabs with them, but only if the movie is received really well. Even then though, it might end up like the Night at the Museum sets, designed by Nicholas Carlier. The first time he uploaded this set in 2022, it got 10,000 supporters in just 2 months. This really isn't that surprising though. If you ever watched Night at the Museum growing up, then you know that this movie is super good. After the first rejection, Carlier made it his mission to make the set way better and re-upload it to Lego Ideas. And 2 years later, he was back with a completely new design. Instead of making the inside of the museum with no ceiling or walls like he did the first time, he cut the museum in half. Now, I like the first design a lot more, to be honest, but either way, it doesn't matter. We already know what happened to that new and improved version. Usually rejections for movies like this are pretty obvious, but the fact that Lego rejected this modular heritage museum set blows my mind. This set was made for the modular buildings theme, and just like that library from my second video on rejected ideas, this museum would fit perfectly in any Lego city. The modular buildings theme was made so that fans of Lego City could have an easier time building a city of their own, so every set that gets made for the theme goes a super long way. But I guess Lego and their fans are bound to disagree, and that definitely happened for this Lego Star Wars Jedi Council Chamber set. This build was put on Lego Ideas over 10 years ago, all the way back in 2015. Back then, Lego Ideas had a lot less members, but even then, the set still got 10,000 supporters in just 6 months, which is crazy. The only reason I can think that Lego would have wanted to reject this set was because they were about to release a bunch of sets for the Star Wars sequels that were coming out back then. The creator never resubmitted the set, but I have a funny feeling if they did, there'd be a big chance that Lego would change their mind this time around. One idea Lego is never changing their mind on though is a new and improved version of the Krusty Krab from SpongeBob. The first one came out all the way back in 2006, and the last time Lego even made a set for the theme in general was 2012. Now, even though the SpongeBob theme failed miserably in Lego's eyes, that isn't stopping fans from trying to get what they want. 3 different Krusty Krab sets have gotten 10,000 supporters and failed to review in the last 5 years, but 2 of them are from the same person. The first one was in 2020, the second one was in 2022, and the third one was that same one from 2022 re-uploaded in 2023. There have been 3 solid attempts made by Lego fans, but I guess since the theme's retired, Lego really has no desire to make it. But the problem with Lego's desire to make sets is that it really just doesn't make sense sometimes. This is the Clockwork Solar System set, and it would blow every Lego space set Lego's ever released out of the water. Made by Chris Orchard and Brent Waller, not only is this set extremely accurate to the actual solar system, but the planets even rotate around the sun using a singular Technic motor. It doesn't end there though. These guys even made sure the planets rotate at 99.8% accuracy relative to how they do in real life. They definitely move a lot faster, but that's still super sick. The only problem is that this set's been submitted and rejected 3 times in the last 4 years, so odds are we're never seeing it on the shelves. However, this next set is the exact opposite. Back in 2020, Lego officially collabed with IKEA. Lego collabing doing with stores is nothing new, but the one thing they didn't do with IKEA was make a mini version of a store. So a fan decided to make it themselves and post it on LEGO Ideas. It was uploaded 2 years after the collab, so it's not like LEGO didn't have the licensing. The only thing is that IKEA stores are huge, so the creator made it as a modular building instead of a giant warehouse, which was probably pretty smart. Even then though, the set still got rejected, which really is a shame. But it's nowhere near as sad as this LEGO Dr. Seuss set getting rejected. Dr. Seuss is one of the most famous children's book writers of all time, so theoretically, LEGO would have no problem making a set with them, right? Wrong. They probably only rejected it because they didn't have the licensing, but if there's any set they should have went out of their way to make, it's this one. You get to build 3 of the most famous Dr. Seuss books ever written, and instead of them opening up to pages, they reveal some of the most iconic parts from each story. It's definitely a little messy, but LEGO could easily help fix that. They must really not like fan-made Christmas sets though, because they also rejected this Claus Toys Toy Store set too. This is another set that looks like it's straight from the modular buildings theme. And honestly, it'd be really cool if LEGO started making Christmas sets as a sub-theme in modular buildings. This set would fit perfectly in a wintry LEGO snow town. With all the minifigures, the decorations on the store, and everything else, it's literally perfect. LEGO releases Christmas-themed sets all the time too. Like Santa's Post Office and the Alpine Lodge are both on the website right now. But I guess LEGO just can't be reasoned with sometimes, because they rejected one of the coolest sets in this whole video, a working LEGO bike. When I say working, I don't mean that it's big enough for you to get on and ride yourself. That's something only Nathan Sawaya could probably do. So while it may not be life-sized, it still functions just like a regular bike. The pedals make the wheels move, the handle brakes actually work, and there's even a nice little kickstand too. I have to say, my jaw literally dropped when I saw the bike chain moving so smoothly, but I guess LEGO has way higher standards than me. Because not only did they reject this bike, but they rejected this insane LEGO travel suitcase set. Now on the outside, it doesn't look like much, but once you open it, it reveals a beautiful landscape remade out of LEGO bricks. The person who made this set says that whenever they travel, they never forget what they saw, and they wanted to recreate that same feeling out of LEGO bricks. I'm not exactly sure where they went to inspire this build, but I can tell it was amazing. This is a rejection that I just can't understand, especially from a business perspective. Like, imagine the suitcase was dedicated to a certain city in the world, and when you opened it up, you saw that city remade out of bricks. LEGO could have done this for so many different cities, and I think fans would have loved it. That seems to be the case for a lot of rejected ideas though. The fans like something, but LEGO doesn't, so they decide not to make it. But what happens when LEGO makes something both the fans and LEGO like? Well, you clicked on the video, so I guess we already know the answer. But still, look at this set based on all the different types of bridges in the world. This falls right in line with the world of civil engineering, which is a world that LEGO's been a part of for a super long time. It's a known fact that engineers use LEGO bricks to test their bridges before making them in real life. So the fact that LEGO rejected a set that directly relates to them is insane. And it's not like LEGO isn't proud to be a part of the engineering world. There's an entire page on their website dedicated to it. So this really is one that I just can't understand. The next rejection is the University of Brixton set, and the architecture here is super sick. The builder took inspiration from different British universities and bundled them all into one. They said they really liked how some of these old buildings are expanded with modern architecture, like the York Theatre in England, and I have to agree, because it makes for a super cool looking LEGO set. It comes with 8 different minifigures, and the inside is just what you'd expect. There are a bunch of different classrooms and common areas, and of course the architecture on the inside matches what it looks like on the outside, bringing it all together. Maybe LEGO just thinks old looking stuff like this won't do well though, because they also rejected this antique cabinet set. Now, I've never cared about real antiques before, but LEGO antiques? Sign me up. This would definitely be a super sick decorative piece, but what I want to talk about is how funny the antiques in the cabinet are. The creator used a bunch of different LEGO pieces and color matched them to fit with the rest of the set, which I think is hilarious. It's just a bunch of random pieces, which, funnily enough, is pretty accurate to real antiques. Then, of course, there's the random armchair tying it all together. This isn't something that LEGO would typically release, so I kind of understand rejecting it, but it definitely has its audience. The final rejection I want to show you, though, is this insane ancient Greek temple set. This is another one that just makes no sense to me, because not only did the creator put a ton of effort into it, but it wouldn't be out of the ordinary for LEGO to release something like this. They just recently released the Great Pyramid of Giza set, and obviously it's supposed to be what the pyramids looked like when they were originally made. But do you see what I mean? seen? The ancient Greek temple set is literally the same thing, just in a different country. Ancient Greece has some of the most beautiful architecture in all of history. Their temples are literally known for being some of the most well-made buildings ever, just like the pyramids of Giza. I really do feel bad for the person that made this, because this set definitely deserves to be on the show. This is the new and improved one I was talking about before, submitted by Adam Mark. Unlike the one LEGO already released back in 1999, the one made by Mark depicts what McDonald's looked like back in the 1950s and 60s when it was first made. Mark clearly did his research too, because this set looks amazing. Not only are the minifigures wearing the uniforms from back in the day, but he even recreated the Speedy system that McDonald's was known for back then. By the way, this system is what created the term fast food, since everything was prepared and handed out to the customer so quickly. It's clearly a super important piece of food history, so the fact that LEGO rejected it really just does not make sense. I guess you can't win them all though, so let's just move on to the next reject. This is the LEGO Krusty Burger from The Simpsons, and if I'm being honest, this rejection actually makes a lot of sense. In case you didn't know, LEGO Simpsons actually was a real LEGO theme not too long ago. The first set under the theme was The Simpsons House, which was released back in 2014. Here's the thing though. Only one other set was made under the LEGO Simpsons theme, the Quickie Mart, and it was a whole year later in 2015. After this, LEGO never made another set for The Simpsons, and eventually retired the theme in 2017. It wasn't for no reason though. Since The Simpsons is known to have some adult themes in the show, a lot of parents were very upset that LEGO would promote a show like that to kids. LEGO definitely didn't want to be on anyone's bad side, so this is why the theme was retired so quickly. Tying this back to the Krusty Burger idea though, this set was presented in May of 2020, 3 years after this whole scandal was resolved. In my opinion, LEGO has literally no reason to make a Simpsons set again after what happened last time, so this rejection was definitely justified. What do you think though? Do you think LEGO was right to reject this set, or should they just ignore the angry parents and bring back the Simpsons theme? Let me know down in the comments. Up next is a rejected idea for one of the best Christmas movies ever, The Polar Express. Presented by Mini Brick Productions back in December of 2020, this idea is an absolute banger. In case you don't believe me though, this set got 10,000 supporters in just 2 months. That's right, in February of 2021, this idea was already set to be reviewed by LEGO, which is genuinely crazy. Most times, these ideas take months or even years to get 10,000 supporters. So the fact that this idea got it so fast is insane. Let's take a look at it though, so we can see for ourselves why it got so much support. Off rip, it's already obvious that this LEGO train is extremely accurate to the one from the movie, and the minifigures just make the set even better. It comes with 8 in total, and features the characters we all know and love. Even with all of this though, it wasn't enough to pass LEGO's review. I don't know what type of test LEGO puts these sets through, but they must be something crazy. I mean, the Polar Express definitely should have passed. Moving on from that though, this next idea is based on one of the most popular games of the last 5 years, Among Us. We all know the game Among Us, and odds are we've all played it too. When it first came out, it was one of the most fun games ever, but even just 6 months later, the hype was dying down a lot, and the game just didn't feel the same anymore. This is probably the biggest reason why LEGO rejected the idea. The set itself is super cool and perfectly depicts the original map when the game first came out, and I honestly really liked the idea of converting the Among Us style characters into LEGO astronauts. This idea was presented around the game's peak in December of 2020 and didn't get 10,000 supporters until April of 2021. By this point, the game was pretty much dead, so honestly it isn't surprising that LEGO decided not to make it. But this next rejection is one I don't think I'll ever get over. As we all know, LEGO Star Wars is one of the biggest LEGO themes in history. Combining the popularity of Star Wars with LEGO, there was no way it could have failed. As a result, fans of LEGO Star Wars have been coming up with their own sets and posting them on LEGO Ideas for a long time now. And one of the best ideas ever is the Luke, I am your father scene. This is one of the most well-known scenes in the entire franchise, so making a LEGO set for it just makes sense. But apparently LEGO didn't agree. Now, I know that the pictures provided by the creator aren't the best, but this is something that can easily be fixed by LEGO. Luke and Vader will get their faceplates, and the bricks will look more like LEGO. But apparently LEGO decided that all of this wasn't worth it and rejected the set anyway. I have to say, LEGO, this is a bad miss from you guys. This set is a great idea. This next rejection though had the LEGO community up in arms. On October 27th, 2021, an idea submitted by Puzz LEGO hit the ideas forum. This wasn't just any idea though. The idea was a Rubik's Cube that the creator claimed actually worked. Spoiler spoiler alert, it did. And this wasn't the first time Puzz Lego made a working Rubik's Cube out of Lego. In fact, the first one he made was back in 2020, and he even posted a video of the cube to his YouTube channel and broke down how to make it step by step. The video did extremely well and inspired Puzz to make an even better version of the cube. Around a year later, on October 3rd, 2021, Puzz uploaded a new Lego Rubik's Cube video to his channel. But in case you didn't notice, this still isn't the one he posted on Lego Ideas. The video went absolutely viral, having over 12 million views today, but he still decided to improve the cube one last time. The third and final video was posted the same day he posted the cube on Lego Ideas, October 27th, and you won't believe how fast it got 10,000 supporters. In just 6 days, Puzz Lego's working Rubik's Cube reached 10,000 supporters, which is an unheard of amount of time. Even after all of this though, the videos on YouTube, the insane amount of support from fans, and just the sheer size of the entire operation, Lego rejected the idea. I like to imagine that they did this because they need some sort of deal with Rubik's Cube to make this set legally, because there's no way they could have ignored everything that went into making this idea. Sorry, I know I've been yapping about Rubik's Cubes for a while now, so let's get on to the next rejected idea. Up next is an idea based on a super popular TV show from Cartoon Network, Steven Universe. The idea was submitted by Brick Cucumber in May of 2020, and unfortunately, this idea never even got the 10,000 supporters it needs to get reviewed. This really is a shame though, because Brick Cucumber put a ton of work into this set. Not only are the builds extremely accurate to the show, but the minifigures look incredible. Since the idea was originally posted, Brick Cucumber gave tons of updates and was adding new stuff left and right. It mostly consisted of new minifigures of different characters from the show, which I think we can all agree is a great idea. Everybody loves minifigures. Unfortunately though, the idea is now expired, so I don't think Lego will be making a Steven Universe theme anytime soon. Up next is one of the most beloved movies among Gen Z, Lilo and Stitch. This movie is a classic for Gen Z, and the fact that Lego's already made a few Lilo and Stitch products makes this rejection even more confusing. Officially, Lego's released 2 Stitch sets and 2 Stitch minifigures, but they haven't made an actual set, so this idea would have been the perfect way to start it off. It depicts the house Lilo and Stitch live in, which is just a cool house in general. Along with that though, there are 7 minifigures, all of which play an important role in the movie, so having them in Lego form would be super cool. The creator even added not just 1, but 2 flying cars, so they clearly know their stuff. I guess this just wasn't enough for Lego though, since as we know, this idea got rejected. Up next is another piece of Lego engineering much like the Rubik's Cube, where you wouldn't expect it to work, but it actually does. This is a working Lego bowling alley made by Lego Paradise, and I have to say, this is an insanely cool idea. You might be wondering how it's able to function though, so allow me to walk you through it. First, you knock the pins down with the ball, obviously. Then after that, you crank the lever on the back side of the set until the new bowling pins are in place. Once they're in their spot, you crank the lever the opposite way to move the pin holder out of the way. Then, you bowl. Oh, and don't worry about getting your ball back. All you have to do is crank the little gear on the front of the set, and the ball will be flipped up into its respective spot. This set was clearly very thought out and executed with precision, but unfortunately, Lego still rejected it. I have to say, a lot of these rejections make no sense on Lego's end, but this next one might be the most confusing. I present to you the Lego Library, made specifically for Lego City. Before I get into the set here though, I just have to say, you'd think since this set fits Lego City so well, that Lego would have no problem making it, but they still rejected it. I mean, just look at this thing. It looks like it's right out of Lego's playbook. Anyways, the idea was submitted by Kiwoo on December 13th, 2021. Right from the beginning, it was obvious that Jiwoo was extremely dedicated to this set. Not only does the exterior look incredible, I mean, the entrance is literally a giant book, but the interior has 3 separate floors that all have their own purpose. The first floor is the reading room, the second floor is the data room, and the third floor is the outdoor rest area. And the back of the set even opens up so you can look at this masterpiece from the other side. I don't know. Like I said before, this is by far the most confusing rejection in my opinion. I mean, this set is just a 10 out of 10. Up next is a super cool idea that might be a little too graphic for Lego to actually make. This is the Anatomini set, made by Stephanix, and do you see what I mean now? The idea behind this set is that we're looking at the anatomy of a minifigure, and since minifigures are modeled after humans, they'd have a skeleton identical to ours. Now, even though I think this idea is super cool, I can see why Lego might not want to make it. Lego has fans as young as 3 years old, and since that's such a young age, Lego might want to let school show them human anatomy instead of one of their sets. I don't know though, maybe I'm just being too cautious. I've seen a lot of different types of this exact idea all over the internet. For this next set though, I know for a fact Lego will never make it. This is the Lego Terraria set, and I can say confidently that this is something Lego will never do. Now, before you start cooking me in the comments, just let me explain. explain. I'm not saying this because I think Terraria is a bad game. In fact, I think it's one of the most important games in video game history. But the fact that LEGO has already collabed with Minecraft would be a slap in the face to the entire theme. In case you didn't know, there's an age-old beef between Minecraft and Terraria players. Each side thinks the other side's game is terrible, so this is a bridge that I don't think even LEGO can build. They managed to pull it off with Mario and Sonic, but Minecraft and Terraria is a totally different ballgame. Good choice here, LEGO. I think you dodged a bullet with this one. However, I can't say the same about this next idea. This is the My Neighbor Totoro set, made by LEGO Truman. The movie this set is based on is a little old, so let me give you some context. My Neighbor Totoro is a Japanese animated film from 1988. Although it was made in Japan, the film became very popular in America in the early 2000s, with the English dub having been aired on Disney Channel multiple times. If you remember my last video on rejected ideas, I talked about the Spirited Away set. Well, My Neighbor Totoro was made by the same studio, Studio Ghibli. In my opinion, every film made by Studio Ghibli could easily be made into a LEGO set, and since the studio is so famous, this is a big part of the population that LEGO is just missing out on. If you're watching LEGO, you should really consider collabing with Studio Ghibli. Not only would it be a generational collab, but it'd be so cool to see Studio Ghibli brought to life with LEGO. Just saying. This brings us to our final rejected idea, and I have to say, it's a good one. This is the LEGO Volkswagen Golf MK1 GTI, and even though it isn't a supercar, this is still one of the coolest LEGO cars ever, in my opinion. Now, I know I said before that the library was the most confusing rejection in this video, but this Volkswagen just might take the cake. Not only is this car absolutely sick, but it got 10,000 supporters in less than 2 months back in 2016. Back then, the LEGO Ideas Forum was nowhere near as big, so that really says something. But as we know, this type of stuff means nothing to LEGO, so the builder made sure to go above and beyond with his research. When creating this car, he made sure that LEGO had the rights to the pieces he was using, and even included them in a list in the description of his set. Even after all of this though, LEGO still decided that the car wasn't worth making, but it was on display at the LEGO house back in 2018 to honor the 10th anniversary of LEGO Ideas. The car may not have been made, but that's still a pretty cool accomplishment. What was your favorite rejected idea in this video? Be sure to let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.